Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Mayor Shawyn Patterson Howard, and we welcome you to Let's Talk with Shawyn. Tonight, we are joined by Elvira Castillo, who is the head of Westchester Latinos Unidos, as well as George Ortiz, who is an immigration attorney serving here in the tri-state area. And of course, tonight we want to talk about one of our hot topics, which is knowing your rights and dealing with immigration. But before we get to that conversation, we just want to give you a few updates as to what's happening here in the city of Mount Vernon this coming week. And so, happy Black History Month. We are in day 2 of Black History Month. And on Wednesday, February 5th, at Mount Vernon City Hall, we will have our kickoff of Black History Month. We are calling it to be Young, Gifted, and Black. Our special guests will be students from the Denzel Washington School of the Arts, as well as the Revelators Dance Troupe. The event will begin, the doors will open at 5:30 and showtime is at 6:30 p.m. We want you to come on out and join us. Again, we are excited to have the Senior Quilting Club out of the Dole Center. Their quilts will be on display. That was an incredible hit last year. And so come on in and check out the quilt display, but come and support our young people in the To Be Young, Gifted, and Black kickoff to Black History Month. The next thing that we're going to be celebrating is our Black History 2025 movie series on Wednesday, February 5th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Dole Center. We'll be showing the movie Till, and that's the movie about Emmett Till. On Wednesday, February 12th from 1 to 3, Good Trouble is the movie that we will be showing. On Wednesday, February 19th from 1 to 3 p.m., it'll be One Night in Miami. And then we're going to end off the month on the 26th of February. These are all on Wednesdays. And this is our only evening movie. It will be The Summer of Soul. So please put those dates in your calendar and make sure that you come out and support those events. These are all free events. The next thing that we really want to talk about very briefly is we're really excited to report that our South Fulton Avenue bridge that goes over the Metro North train track was reopened on Friday. We closed it on January 8th, 2022. And in 3 years and 1 week, we were able to reopen it again. This is a very important road that goes from north to south in the city of Mount Vernon. And so we're excited to have it back online. We want to thank the MTA. We want to thank DPW. We want to thank ECHO, which was the construction managers and the construction company on this project. Thank you to our New York State legislators, Assemblyman Gary Pretlow, as well as Jamal Bailey, to our city council, to our controller, and of course to our wonderful, wonderful DPW staff, our commissioners, deputy commissioners, engineers, team, and everyone who worked with us on that. And the same set of thanks will go also to the same team, so I won't mention them again, but we also on Friday reopened the South Street Bridge. And the South Street Bridge is at the opposite end of the community, down past 14th Avenue, going towards the Mount Vernon Bronx border. And so we reopened the South Street Bridge as well. And so really after 37 years of one of those 11 bridges that traverse the Metro North Railroad, we finally have all of them open. After 37 years, all of our bridges are open. And so in 2019, 14th Avenue opened. In 2020, it was the 6th Avenue Bridge, and then the 10th Avenue Bridge. And then we had the 3rd Avenue Bridge, I believe, opened in 2022, or maybe even 2023. And then now in 2025, we've had the Fulton Avenue and the South Street Bridge reopen. And these are really, really critical. It's not just about the bridges and having nice bridges, but this is the way that services pass from the north side to the south side and back again. And so it's important for public safety, our police, our fire, our ambulances to be able to go from one side of the city to the other to address emergency and public safety needs, as well as for our Department of Public Works to be able to pick up garbage, plow streets, and do the things that they need to take care of the city. While those two bridges were only closed to traffic and pedestrians for 3 years. They were really closed to the city vehicles, which are heavy and could not go over those bridges for over 10 years. And so we're really, really excited those are back up and in full operation again. And again, thank you to our partners. And so now I want to pivot and kind of really focus on our topic for the night, which is Know Your Rights. And I'm going to ask Tim if you could bring in our guest, Elvira Castillo, as well as George Ortiz. So Elvira Castillo is one of the founders of the Westchester Latinos Unidos. She's been a resident of Mount Vernon for quite a few decades. She is a real estate agent, she's a community activist. She is involved in so many different facets of our city. And so we want to welcome you, Ms. Castillo. And then we also want to welcome Mr. George Ortiz, who is an immigration attorney and the wonderful partner of a dynamic person in the state of New York and one of my good friends, Marisol Alcantara. And so thank you so much, George, for coming on and being with us tonight. We know that with Trump coming into office and the executive orders and the mass deportation, that there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of panic, there's a lot of worry that is happening right now. I received a phone call recently from someone that I know who said, even though my family member doesn't have any felonies or any warrants or anything like that, they were in the country, they were deported, they came back, they got paperwork through Biden's office, and they were on their way to becoming a citizen. They own a home, they own a business for 20 years, and they received a letter saying that they have 30 days to get out of the country. 30 days. Right. And so, while the public narrative is that we're just swooping around and we're picking up dangerous felons, and I have no issue with that. We don't want anyone to feel that whether they're a resident or a citizen or not a citizen, that they feel that they can come into our communities and commit crime without any consequences. So, if that's the action you have to take to keep our streets safe from violent criminals and people who are breaking the law, fine. But when you're talking about someone who is a homeowner, who's a business owner, who's been here living law abiding also for 20 years, or others who have come more recently, but they are contributing to society, there's different tales and ends to this story. And so I want to talk about that tonight. George. So if you could just introduce yourself quickly and you do the same, Elvira, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Well, good evening. And thank you for the opportunity, Madam Mayor, to reach out to our community. These are very, very difficult times for the community, for those immigrants that need the support, the information. This is a great way of providing that to them. Like yourself, my phone has been ringing off the hook. It's been horrible. Everyone's afraid. Parents are not sending their children to school. It's really, really a very difficult situation. And so I am grateful to George, Mr. Ortiz, who has been very, very good with Westchester Latinos Unidos. He held a very informative meeting in Yonkers at our other office, and it was amazing the amount of calls, the amount of people that are just worried. We have people there from Mount Vernon. And as you know, we are a small city, and there's a lot of immigrants here, and it's not just a Latino Hispanic. I mean, we have Caribbeans. I have a very dear friend who's from Jamaica who's as worried as we all are. So it concerns all of us. And I thank you for the opportunity of telling the community what are their rights, because there's a lot of people that are concerned and confused, because everything changes. Every time you turn around, something else comes around. So thank you again.
So I want to thank you, Mayor Sean Patterson Howard and Elvira Castillo, for this opportunity, especially in Black History Month. So Black History Month. And I think it's very poignant and relevant because the diaspora from the Caribbean and Latin America, has suffered so long for many centuries. And this is just another reflection of the diaspora's experience in the United States. And I understand Mount Vernon has a lot of Caribbean people and Latino people in it, and I know that the communities are working together and gonna just come together to fight this, because if not, it's going to get really bad. It's pretty bad, and we're seeing all of that in the news with the executive orders. They're trying to take away birth citizenship rights, which has been a standard for 150 years, and a judge struck it down and said that's unconstitutional. So that's a silver lining and everything. And I think the purpose of this call, like the mayor said, is to sift through what's true and what's false, because everybody's trying to listen to things in the street and in the internet. And what we want to do is streamline that and people to come away empowered to know what their rights are as undocumented peoples, or even green card holders. Everything is up for grabs here, and especially when you encounter immigration officers. And so I want people to come away knowing their rights and feeling empowered despite the fear and despite the uncertainty. So thank you.
Thank you. If I may, Madam Mayor, I would like to also translate that if possible.
Sure.
And George, I'll allow you to translate what you just said as well. Buenas tardes. Estamos aquí con el abogado de inmigración, Jorge Ortiz, que es un abogado que le puede dar información y que le va a dar información de cómo y qué hacer en caso de que ICE llegue a su casa, le haga preguntas. Él le va a dar la información correcta, la información que necesitan para poder lidiar con este tema. Yo soy Elvira Castillo, presidenta de Westchester Latinos Unidos. El alcalde Sean Patterson Howard está haciendo este programa diseñado para los residentes de la ciudad de Mount Vernon, porque ella reconoce que hay muchos inmigrantes, y no tan solo que son hispanos, hay del Caribe, hay inmigrantes que son de Jamaica, o sea, hay bastantes ciudadanos que necesitan esa información, y ella quiere que ustedes tengan la información correcta. Por eso estamos aquí esta noche. Gracias. Jorge? George, can you hear me?
I had to find my unmute. And so I'm going to ask the question in English, and then we'll also ask it then in Spanish, and George will answer in English and then in Spanish. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. So what should I do if immigration officers come to my home? You have to unmute yourself, George. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. And I apologize. My connection is bad. So if I don't answer, it got frozen. That's why I said my connection paused. So if it happens again, that's what's happening. So, ¿qué debo hacer si agentes de inmigración vienen a mi casa? And so the question is, what should I do if immigration officers come to my home? So what I want to stress right now is that the constitutional laws still apply to undocumented people. And regardless of their status, whether they're green card holders or people who have not legalized their status, when an immigration officer comes to your home, the constitutional law applies. You have the right to not open the door. They cannot knock down your door. And if they do knock on your door, you can tell them, listen, do you have a warrant? They need a judicial warrant with your name and your address, and it has to be accurate. And you can ask them to throw it under the door. You don't need to open the door. You can say, please, can you put the warrant under the door? And you read the warrant. If they don't have a warrant, you don't have to open the door. Now, that being said, as we all know, officers come in varieties. Some of them are aggressive, some of them are not. Some of them will try to knock down the door. I can't say that that won't happen. Now, if they knock down your door, that's a total violation of your rights. And that, especially with the Fourth Amendment, you cannot be subjected to unreasonable searches and seizures as to your home, your papers, and your person. So if that were to happen, do not fight the officer. Do not physically fight the officer. Don't resist. Don't jump out the window through the fire escape. Don't do any of those things. Stand your ground because you have rights. You can remain silent if they ask you questions about your country of origin. You can say, I don't have to answer that question. And they're not supposed to go into your drawers, into any place, private place, and search your home without a judicial warrant. Now, if they show you an administrative warrant, which is not signed by a judge, that's even worse. They have no jurisdiction to enter your home, force themselves into your home, grab you, throw you on the ground, or force you to speak. All of those are violations. So that's my answer to the aspect of private spaces like your home or somebody else's home. Those rights extend to your friend's home if you happen to be visiting. That extends to their homes as well, or any non-public area. Now, public areas, you have a right if you're walking to work and you're catching a bus in Mount Vernon.
Hold on, George.
Or any place.
George, just 1 second. Yeah. Can we have Elvira answer that in Spanish right now? Because we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
La pregunta fue, ¿qué pasa si viene uno de los agentes de I.C.E. y toca mi puerta? Entonces, Jorge le acaba de informar que no tienen que abrir la puerta, no hay que dejarlo entrar, tienen que guardar silencio, no firmar ningún documento sin consultar antes con su abogado. Si le enseñan un papel, tienen que pasárselo debajo de la puerta, no tienen que abrirlo tampoco, y que tiene que estar firmado por un juez. ¿Es cierto, Jorge? O sea, y tener el nombre de la persona. También dice, según dice Jorge, puede ser una amistad o lo que sea, que vayan y le toquen, infórmenle a sus vecinos que no tienen que abrir la puerta. No es
So the first time we combined two questions. What do I do if they come to my house? And do I have to open the door for immigration? And so we're going to jump down to another question. What are my rights if I'm stopped by immigration officers in a public place? So, ¿cuáles son mis derechos si soy detenido por agentes de inmigración en un lugar público?
Perfecto. So, I'll start in English. So, if you're walking in the street and an immigration officer approaches you, they cannot ask you what country you're from. They cannot tell you, can you go with me to a certain place? You could say, no, I'm on my way to work. You don't even have to tell them that you're on your way to work. You could say, I don't have to answer any of your questions. Unless you have a warrant for my arrest, if you could show it to me with my name on that warrant and my address, then I'm going to keep walking. Now, don't resist. Like if they grab you, this is where it gets tricky, because if some of them are aggressive and they grab you, do not physically confront them. Do not fight them. Please do not do that, because Trump and the Senate and the Congress just passed a law called the Laken-Riley Act, which was for the purpose of being able to detain people in detention for the duration of the process of their immigration case. If your immigration case is 2 years, if it's going to last 2 years, potentially you could be detained for 2 years. I don't know if you want to translate. I don't want to go too far.
Sí,
Elvira.
sí, sí, sí. La pregunta fue, gracias Jorge, la pregunta fue ¿qué pasa si uno de los agentes me detiene en la calle? Y Jorge dice que tienen que pedirle el warrante para detenerlo, porque me paran, tiene que tener el nombre y dirección de la persona. Y no tienen que dar ninguna información, siempre mantengan el silencio. Todo consúltenlo con su abogado. Según Jorge, Trump pasó una orden, ¿no?, de detención, Jorge, que ¿me escuchas, Jorge? ¿Qué pasa en este caso con la orden que Trump dio?
Ok, so Trump pasó una ley que se llama Lake and Riley. Esa ley dice que te pueden detener aunque no te han enjuiciado. El simple hecho que fuiste arrestado, por ejemplo, voy a dar un ejemplo. I'm going to give an example. I'm translating the Lake and Riley Act. La ley de Lake and Riley dice que si tú, por ejemplo, es acusado en un CVS de robar algo, solo por el hecho que te detuvieron y te arrestaron, pueden detenerte y preguntarte tu estatus y mantenerte debajo la autoridad de inmigración y apartarte y ponerte en un centro de detención por el simple hecho de haber sido acusado. So what I just said is the Lake and Riley Act basically says that even if you're, for example, you're in CVS and someone accuses you of stealing, the mere fact of being accused and that the police are called and they detain you, just for that reason, they can detain you. The immigration agents can detain you, and they can also potentially deport you, which is very dangerous. And it's not just shoplifting. No solamente es robando en tiendas. It's also battery, assault. Si tú le pegas a alguien,
¿Verdad, Jorge? Si resiste un arresto, si le salen discutiendo con la policía, por favor, mantengan la calma, mantengan el silencio, no firmen nada, no hagan nada, y siempre con calma, nunca con agresión.
Right. The point is, don't resist the immigration officers if they get aggressive or physical, because then you're accused of battery and assault, and you can be detained and potentially even deported under that Lake and Riley Act. Unfortunately, it's sad. So that's my take on that.
Okay, I know Tim said he had some questions that are online. Tim, do we have questions? It says, there is confusion about certain terms such as undocumented. What does that mean? Some have work permits and social security numbers, so they think that's legal. They are legal to work, but they have not been ruled on as yet. Please explain.
Traduzca, si quiere, Elvira. You want to translate that question?
Hay alguien en línea que dice que hay una confusión con ciertos términos de personas sin documentos, que significa que muchas de ellas están trabajando con permiso y algunas tienen número de Social Security, pero todavía, y ellos creen que eso es legal. La persona quiere saber qué es, cómo es, qué es lo que pasa. ¿Están legal o no están legal? Que por favor, Jorge, que explique.
I'll speak in English and you can translate for me, Elvira. Thank you. So there's like a confusion here. There is a confusion. The term undocumented basically is a category where certain groups of people fall under, that they haven't received they haven't been able to achieve a green card, or they're not married to an American citizen and they're adjusting their status. They're just in the process of legalizing themselves. So they're technically undocumented. I don't like that word, but that's the technical term. Now, people with a green card, they're legal. They have legal status in this country. But those two categories, under the Trump administration, you can be detained and deported regardless. And I hate to say that, I don't want to, inspire fear, but I have to say the truth of what's the truth. Whether you're a green card holder with legal status or undocumented with no legal status, you can be exposed to detention and deportation. Now, people are confused because there's a lot of lawyers that are kind of unscrupulous, and they just want to take people's money, and they'll say, listen, I'll get you a work permit, I'll get you a parole card, and so then people think, oh, I'm okay, I'm gonna be all right, but you're still technically undocumented because your case has not been finished, so you're still open to being detained and deported. That's the thing. That doesn't make you legal just because you have a work permit and a ETIN number or a social security number. That doesn't make you, quote unquote, exempt from those dangers of being deported or detained. I hope that answers the question. You want to translate? Maybe I went too. You want to translate it?
Yes. I may need your help, George, because that was a lot of information. Lo que el abogado Jorge quiere decir es que aún usted tenga papeles de trabajo, una tarjeta de Social Security, eso no le indica que ya usted es legal. Lo contrario, hay personas con green card, que es la residencia, que aún pueden ser deportados. Así que por tener la residencia y un Social Security y en muchos casos papel de trabajo no significa que ya todo está bien. Lo contrario, tienen que tener mucho cuidado porque sí son personas que pueden ser deportadas.
Thank you so much, Elvira. We have another question from Instagram. They are asking if we are bystanders and we see someone being detained, how can we help this person?
That's a good question. Elvira, you want to translate that question?
El alcalde dice que hay alguien que tiene una pregunta y dice que si alguien está siendo detenido y es una persona que está en la calle mirando este acto, ¿qué esa persona puede hacer?
Okay, now that question is very good because if you're undocumented or you have a green card and you see someone being detained, and even though you have a green card, if for some reason you have prior convictions of moral turpitude, such as robbery, assault, battery, things that are called crimes of moral turpitude, even though you have a green card, if you see someone being detained and you try to obstruct that, you open yourself up to being detained. And then, like I said, despite being a green card holder, you can still be deported and detained and deported because of your prior criminal record. Now, for anybody else, American citizen, I would tell you, do not intervene. What you do is you can record. You can record, because now they're trying to pass laws. They're trying to pass laws saying that if you obstruct a detainee, if you obstruct the process of an ICE officer detaining somebody, you are violating the law and you can be subject to criminal conviction and going to jail for obstructing. That's what they want to do. And this is still in process. That's Trump's ultimate goal. And I think that through the executive orders, you can be arrested for intervening. So I'm sorry.
So George, it's the same thing as if with any type of police action, it's obstruction of governmental administration, Penal Law 195.05, right? And if it's in the first degree, then it's a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in prison. Most likely won't go that far in New York, but if it's a federal charge, we don't know. The other thing, it can be charged in the second degree. So anytime you're interfering with a government action and you jump in, then that is cause for arrest, whether you're a citizen, whether you're not a citizen. And so you have to be careful. Like you said, you can videotape, but even in videotaping, you can't get in the way, right? And you're going to have a lot of officers tell you that you cannot even do that. And then they might become aggressive with you. So we're living in different times right now. And so we have to be wise. We have to understand what we can do and can't do, and then we have to move and act accordingly. Do we have?
I'm sorry, can I just answer that question to them in Spanish? La pregunta fue, ¿qué pasa si vemos que alguien ha sido detenido y podemos hacer algo? El alcalde y el abogado le recomienda que no, porque intervenir con la ley le puede causar muchos problemas. Lo mejor que pueden hacer, especialmente si la persona que está interviniendo es residente solamente. Si es ciudadano, también se puede meter en un problema porque esas son cosas de la ley y uno no puede intervenir en eso. Entonces, lo que les recomendamos es que si quieren grabar, pueden grabar desde lejos, claro, sin participar ni meterse en esos asuntos porque puede causarle problemas.
I have another question. We have another question, but I want to get to this question first before we go back to the question online. What documents should I carry with me to be prepared for an encounter with immigration officers? What documents should I carry with me to be prepared for an encounter with immigration officers? En español, ¿qué documentos deba llevar conmigo para estar preparado en caso de un encuentro con agentes de inmigración? So what should I carry with me if I am encountered, and what documents do I need to carry?
Okay, and it all depends. Like I said, what if you're a green card holder? Of course, carry your green card, because now that ICE is prioritizing people who have been in this country for less than 2 years and crossed the border. So if you can't prove that you were here before 2 years, you're in a world of trouble. So it's always good to carry your green card with the issuance date showing that it was before 2 years ago. And even if it was, after the 2 years, I mean, a green card has its weight, but especially if you're undocumented, you should at least have your New York City, or I don't know if Westchester has an ID that's given to undocumented people. Maybe you could educate me on that. I don't know. But I know New York City gives IDs to everybody, regardless of your legal status. You should carry that. You should carry a driver's license. If you have a New York driver's license, carry that. If you have a passport, carry that as well. But one thing I'm going to say, do not carry any documents from when you were living in your country of origin. It's not going to help. If anything, it's going to open up questioning, and your constitutional rights could be waived if you give them like a passport from your country, or some ID, some voter registration ID from your country. Don't give them false documents, especially if you use false documents to get in this country. Don't give it to them. It's just not the best thing to do. You're just killing yourself. You're just putting yourself in detention and immediate deportation. So that's.
We want Elvira to translate.
All of that. Entonces, la pregunta fue, ¿qué tipo de documentos debo de tener si acaso me detienen ICE? Entonces, las identificaciones que deben de tener es licencia de conducir, pasaporte, si el pasaporte no es falso, claro. Dice el abogado que por favor no anden con documentos falsos. Yo he recibido varias llamadas también de personas que han obtenido documentos, no anden con esos documentos falsos, no carguen documentos de su país, de donde vienen, porque no le hace ningún bien. Y por favor, siempre que estén indecisos de qué hacer, solamente mantengan el silencio hasta que hablen con su abogado.
I just wanted to add, can I add one thing, Mayor? I'm sorry. Can I add something I forgot? If you're undocumented and you're in removal proceedings, you should carry your documents that you have related to the notice to appear, whatever notices you have. Also, if you're not in removal proceedings, which means that you're before a judge, immigration judge, and you're just adjusting your status because you're going to marry an American citizen, or you're doing any other pathways, carry the notices that the USCIS, which is the agency that's different from the immigration court, whatever notices they send you, copy them and carry a copy of it in your pocket to show that you are in process of adjusting your status. It may help. It may help you. Sorry. You want to try?
George, I definitely want to say that people should carry documentation, but they should also maintain a copy, maintain several copies, take a picture of it and put it on your phone. Give family and friends copies of your paperwork. Don't just have one set of documents. You need to have multiple documents in places that friends and family can get to in case you are detained. And someone needs to bring forward, these backup documents for you. En español, Elvira?
Sí, el alcalde, perdón, y Jorge están recordándole que por favor mantengan copias de todos sus documentos. Cuando ustedes, si están en el proceso de legalización o están en cualquier proceso que estén, mantengan copias de todo, manténganselo con ustedes y también mantengan una copia con sus familiares o amistades, alguien que si en dado caso le pasa algo, puedan inmediatamente buscar esos documentos. Eso es muy importante. Igual que si tienen niños pequeños, por favor, asegúrense de tener a alguien, a una persona indicada que vaya a recoger los niños de la escuela o alguien que tenga toda su información. Eso es súper importante. Tienen que prepararse antes de que las cosas pasen. Que si Dios quiere no pasan, pero tienen que precaver. Tengan todo en orden, copias, más de una copia, como dice el alcalde, tienen que tener más de una copia, tienen que andar uno con ustedes, otro con un familiar, y siempre tener todo en alerta por si algo pasa.
Thank you so much. I want to cycle quickly through these next few questions, only because we have about 20 minutes left altogether. We want to keep it under an hour because then it allows us to produce it and put it on YouTube where we could push this conversation out even further, okay? All righty. So there was definitely a question about if you are detained, are you able to make a phone call? If you're detained, are you able to make a phone call to friends and family? Do you have that right to a phone call?
¿Quieres traducir?
La pregunta es, si usted está detenido, ¿tiene usted el derecho de hacer una llamada a sus familiares?
So to answer the question, yes. When you're detained, you have a right to call your attorney. You have a right to a phone call, just like every other American citizen when they get detained. If you don't have a lawyer, you have the right to ask ICE to give you the pro bono list, so you can call a pro bono attorney. They don't have to give you an attorney. They're not obligated to provide you an attorney like in criminal cases. But I hear hope that the governor for New York and the other agencies, state agencies, and even city agencies, they're working on making New York one of the few states where you have a right to counsel, and they're going to fund it. I think they're working on funding that, where people can get lawyers for free if they are detained. That's my. I didn't want to go too far, Alita. Sorry. You can translate.
Okay. Jorge dice que sí. Usted tiene un derecho para hacer una llamada, tiene derecho para llamar a su abogado o un familiar a que la familia haga las gestiones para buscarle un abogado. Si no tienen, Jorge, dijiste que ICE tiene una lista de abogados que sí,
Sí,
pueden.
sí, sí. Y otra cosa que se me olvidó, también tú tienes derecho de llamar la embajada, tu embajada dominicana o cualquier país, y ahí ellos te pueden ayudar también. El consulado,
Okay.
digo.
Okay, that's great, great. George was just saying that they also have the right to call their consulate, right? And ask for assistance.
Yes.
So one of the things that we will do is we're going to drop into the comments after this, so people can always go back. The Westchester County Board of Legislators, through the County of Westchester, has produced a document of immigration resources here in Westchester that people can tap into. And, so we want to make sure that people know what they can tap into here in Westchester. I know New York City has a list, and there's lists for the state, but we want to make sure they understand that they can go to like El Centro Hispano and in the Empire Justice Center and Hope's Door and Catholic Charities. And so all of that information has been compiled, and we will make sure that we're dropping it into the comments or into the bio here on Facebook, Instagram, and we actually are being shown right now live on YouTube as well. So we're going to put it in all of these different places, and then you can continue to share the information. And so, okay, the next question I have here for you, how can I ensure that my family is protected if I'm detained by immigration or ICE? How can I assure that my family is protected?
La pregunta es, ¿cómo me puedo yo asegurar que mi familia está protegida si me agarra ICE?
Yeah. So I don't want to give a long answer, so feel free to jump in and I'll do a couple of phrases and you could translate because it's going to be a little long. So I don't want to lose the track. So this is a good question. And it goes back to what Mayor Shawyn Patterson Howard said. You have to be ready and you have to assume that you can be detained and deported. And it's almost like have a family plan, like a plan of detention. So if it does happen, if you have kids, the way to protect your kids is if you have a family member who's a U.S. citizen. I'll let you translate. If you have
la respuesta es que sí, tienen que tener un plan familiar, ¿no? Si acaso algo le puede pasar a ustedes quieren tener un plan familiar. ¿Qué es un plan familiar? Un plan familiar es si alguna emergencia pasa con alguno de nosotros. Esto es lo que tú vas a hacer y esto es lo que la otra persona va a hacer. Todo el mundo va a tener una responsabilidad de qué hacer y cómo hacerlo. Y claro, en esos momentos tan que no se sabe lo que está pasando ni lo que va a pasar, tenemos que estar preparados como si no fuera a pasar. Tenemos que tener un plan de acción, ¿ok?
Right.
Y eso es muy importante.
I wanted to finish saying, so you can translate it, is if you have a U.S. citizen family member, those are the best. That's the best person. If you have trust in them to be even your legal guardian of your kids, because if you get detained, you gotta have all your documents together. the school records, the medical records of your children. It'd be great if you could do power of attorney where they can make decisions for the health and welfare of your children and educational decisions to be made. Because you're detained, you can't make those decisions. And also, in terms of bank accounts, make sure that everyone has access to your bank accounts, because you're not going to be able to give money to your children or to your family members. So you have someone that you trust that can go to the bank and get the money to give it to your children if you're detained. And maybe you might need that money for a bond. You might be eligible for a bond to get out, because I've heard some immigrants have been able to get released, but it's very rare, very rare. You have to have a squeaky clean background, no criminal background, but that, you got to assume that you won't be able to get out. So you got to plan accordingly. The other thing is, if you own property and assets, you have to visit a lawyer. You may have to visit a lawyer and invest in a lawyer to be able to, give your power of attorney to people you trust so they can sell your properties or do whatever they have to do to make sure that your estate, that your assets and everything that you own is protected, because you can't do anything when you're detained. So I'm not going to talk.
Let me try to translate all that. Okay. Nuestro abogado sugiere que, como le acabo de decir, tengan ese plan familiar. Tienen que tener alguien, y es preferido alguien que ya sea ciudadano, que pueda hacerse cargo de sus niños si los niños están pequeños. Deben de tener una persona de confianza para que esa persona pueda hacerse cargo de sus cuentas bancarias, propiedad, todo lo que tenga que ver con su dinero, su propiedad, cosa de que ellos puedan resolver por ustedes en dado caso que ustedes no puedan estar presentes para sus niños. Eso es muy, muy importante. Hay personas que tienen propiedad que quizás no puedan hacer nada si otra persona ya no tiene ese poder que ustedes le pueden dar. Porque hay un poder que ustedes le pueden dar para que ellos puedan hacer todas las cosas que ustedes no van a poder hacer en dado caso que algo pase.
I just want to add one more thing. I just wanted to add, if for some reason, if you have the means to do so, retain a lawyer proactively. Have an immigration lawyer in queue where if anything happens, they can go and to the detention center and possibly even post a bond or help you out, in any way. If you have to give a retainer, if you don't have the means, I think we need to start talking about organizations that can help as well, that can be on queue just in case if you get detained. That's what I gotta say.
La otra cosa que queremos aclararle, perdón, es que la importancia de tener un abogado que ustedes puedan llamar, que sus familiares puedan contactar. Eso es sumamente importante. Si no tienen la facilidad o el dinero de poder obtener o tener a alguien ya listo, por si acaso lo necesitan, entonces hay organizaciones, nosotros estamos informándonos de organizaciones que puedan ayudar con estos problemas que estamos teniendo. Y le vamos a tener informado. Así nosotros obtenemos la información, se la pasamos a ustedes. Nosotros vamos a estar trabajando bien cerca con el señor Ortiz, nuestro abogado de inmigración, que nos va a tener al tanto de todo. Él nos va a dar la información necesaria que ustedes puedan necesitar y nosotros se la podemos dar a ustedes. Pero sí, es sumamente importante que ustedes tengan esa persona, ese abogado, que esté en la alerta por si acaso ustedes lo necesitan.
So, while we are doing this conversation in English and Spanish today, we do know, and we said it at the beginning of this discussion, that it's not only people from Latin America and Central America that are being detained and deported. regardless of where you are from, but definitely more so Black and brown, right? We're going to just say that. So if you're Haitian, if you're from the Caribbean, if you're from the continent, they're going to pick you up quicker than they're going to pick up people from Russia or Albania or Eastern European countries. Let's be very clear that this is not necessarily an equitable situation. And even if you are an American citizen, but we look Spanish or we look Caribbean or we look Haitian, it doesn't mean that they can't stop you and harass you. So even if you are a full American citizen, make sure that you have documentation on you during these times, and make sure that you have documentation backups just like anyone else. I think the first day that they started detaining people, they detained an individual who was a military veteran, right? And of course, they had to prove that they were a US citizen. So right now, it's a different time than what we've seen before. And so just because you're an American citizen, look, if you have to take a picture of your passport, if you have to take a picture of, your state, well, it's not even your driver's license, is not even enough. But whatever documents you might have to take copies of and have with you, and make sure that someone has backup copies of those. I would encourage you to do the same thing. I have pictures of my passport card or my passport, my travel IDs that you can only get when you're a citizen. I have those things available to me and in backup just in case. So we don't want to make people be paranoid, but we're living in a time. We have more questions right now than we do answers. And it's a time that we have not seen before. And so to be prepared and to be informed is better. I just want to say again that we will be putting in the link on each of these platforms information about immigration resources. And George, I've mentioned a few places, but can you give us your information and how people can get in touch with you? I mean, you're volunteering to do these presentations. We want you to be able to, if people need an attorney, that they can also reach out to you. And I'm sure there's a fee, right? Everything's not free, but we want to make sure that we're advertising and supporting you with you giving out so much information.
I appreciate that, Mayor Sean Patterson Howard. I could also say that if people cannot afford my services, I'm willing to work through Westchester Latino Unidos. They could ask me questions. I'm here to help, because this is an unprecedented time, like you said, and it's so great to see you, Mayor, doing this, because it's just great to see politicians and heads of cities that care. It's very hard to find that in all the 50 states and counties and municipalities, and it brings hope to me that, I know you're going to fight for everybody, for the voiceless, and, the African American community, like you said, I mean, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have all these civil rights acts and laws. And it's so sad to see how Trump is trying to gut the civil rights acts and trying to overturn constitutional principles and precedent that's been, fought for, died for. And I think it's great that, I have hope that African Americans who have papers, Caribbean people from the diaspora, Latinos, we're all going to come together. And I think we're going to fight this. We're going to fight this.
Absolutely.
The churches, everybody.
Yes, and thank you, George. You have been a great, you've been amazing to Westchester Latinos Unidos. You've answered a lot of questions that we've been bombarded with. We can't thank you enough. We really appreciate all your time, because you have spent a lot of time with us, and there's more to come. I thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing us and giving us the opportunity to work together as a community, because these are unprecedented times, and we need to stay together. We need to look after our neighbors and our families. I do want to mention that tomorrow is going to be a day without immigrants in the city and in the Bronx. Some of the businesses are actually closing. Parents are not sending their children to school just to, prove a statement, and hopefully we can all work together to get through this.
So as we wrap up, because I want to make sure we stay within that time, because we're also on Instagram and it will cut us off at 1 hour. So we have Westchester Latinos Unidos. They are a resource. We have the Haitian Resource Center that you can connect with through the Slater Center in White Plains. We have the All Islands Association, which is out of Mount Vernon for those who are from the Caribbean. But the bottom line is, regardless of where you are from, right now, I believe that across different nationalities, that immigration attorneys are coming together. But if you need something specifically in your language, and there is a language barrier, then I know that services are provided in, French Creole, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, English, and so many other languages. And these resources are available. So please make sure you carry ID with you. Whether you're an immigrant or you're a citizen, do not open the door if you do not have to. Do not sign papers because you are not required to sign any documents. Do not fight them if they grab you. Do not fight. Do not run. And if you're seeing this happen, do not jump in and interfere. Again, we're living in different times, and those were just some of the things we wanted to say. And there are different types of warrants. There is an administrative warrant that if they come to your house with an administrative warrant, and then there is a search or an arrest warrant. So there are different types of warrants. You could always have them slide the warrant under the door, but you do not have to open it. And lastly, I'm a woman of faith. And in times like these, we have to lean on our faith. You got to pray. We have to support one another. We have to uplift each other. We're in this together. Please know that the Mount Vernon, police department, they're not taking place in raids or anything. Most of our local police departments are not involved in any of this. These are federal actions. They don't coordinate with the police, but the police cannot stop it from happening, but they don't have to participate in it. And so if you see your local police, they're not chasing you, they're not coming after you. But if you happen to be arrested locally and ICE asks us to put a detainer, then the local law enforcement does have to agree, but we're not sending information to them. But if they do make a demand that if you are arrested and there's a history and they get that information, then we will have to hold you. But we're not sending information to ICE or anyone else. Thank you, George. Thank you, Elvira. We appreciate you. Please know that we will be back to have this conversation in French and French Creole. And we will put information out in multiple languages for people. God bless you, everyone, and have a good night. Elvira and George, if you could just stay on after we go offline. Thank you. Tim, you can take us out.